If there's anything on this earth that I never get tired of, that is cookies. Any of you who've been watching my channel for any amount of time know that I love cookies. And those of you who are new and just watching for the first time, guess what? I love cookies. Cookies are awesome. They are the key to happiness of life. And I've already shared with you several different keto-friendly cookie recipes that are just wonderful. I've shared with you my chocolate chip cookie recipe, my gingerbread cookie recipe, my sugar cookie recipe, my macadamia nut recipe, along with a ton of other wonderful cookie recipes. And guess what? Today we have another tasty cookie recipe. Our recipe today is for gluten-free, keto-friendly Snickerdoodles. Now, if you're like my family and you love Snickerdoodles, trust me, you will love this recipe. It gives you all the yumminess of a Snickerdoodle without the carbs and without the gluten. So it's perfect. And if you want a printable version of this, then check out my website at janet'sdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com. You can find a printable version of this and other goodies there for you. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit the little notification bell. That way you can be notified every time I put out a new video. And while you do that, let's get cooking. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Line 2 large baking sheets with parchment paper. In a medium mixing bowl, add 1 cup plus 1 tablespoon of almond flour. You need that extra tablespoon to give it the bulk that it needs, so don't skip on that. It's very important to get the exact measurements when you're doing gluten-free cookies. 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum. This is your binding agent, don't skip on this either. And a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Whisk these all together until they're fully combined and make sure there's no lumps in the almond flour. Sometimes almond flour likes to bunch up on you, so make sure that there is no lumps. Set that bowl aside, and in a large mixer bowl, combine 1/2 cup of brown swerve or brown sugar sweetener of your choice, 1/4 cup of monk fruit sweetener or granulated sweetener of your choice, and 6 tablespoons of melted butter that have been melted and cooled. Make sure it is cooled completely. Combine these all together in your mixer bowl and beat on low for about 30 seconds or until everything is fully combined. Now, if you don't want a brown sugar type taste to your cookies, you can always substitute the brown swerve for more monk fruit sweetener or granulated sweetener of your choice. I personally really like the brown sugar type taste that brown swerve gives to these cookies. But if brown sugar taste is not your thing, you can always substitute it for more granulated sweetener of your choice. Once those are all combined, then add 1 large room temperature egg and 1 large room temperature egg yolk. Now make sure it is just the yolk, not the entire egg, because if you put 2 whole eggs in there, your batter will be way too wet and your cookies will spread. So only 1 egg and 1 egg yolk. Also, make sure they are at room temperature. You will hear me say this in every cookie recipe. Eggs and any other ingredients, room temperature. It helps them to mix together a lot more smoother so you have a nice smooth batter. So after you add the egg and egg yolk, add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract and beat on low for another 20 to 30 seconds or just until they're all combined together. Now take your bowl of dry ingredients and carefully and slowly add it to your wet ingredients. Make sure you go slowly so your dry ingredients doesn't go showering all over the place. Slowly and carefully add it to the wet ingredients. Then beat on low for another 20 to 30 seconds or until the dry ingredients is fully combined with the wet and there is no dry ingredients at all left in the bowl. everything is nice and smooth together. Scrape down the sides and push all the dough into the center of the bowl. Let the dough sit for 3 minutes. This is an absolute must. Do not skip the sitting part of the dough. This is what helps the xanthan gum start becoming active and binding the ingredients together. So letting that dough sit for the 3 minutes is a definite must so that everything can start sticking together. Because remember, this is a gluten-free batter, so it needs extra time for the binding agent to really work its magic. So let it sit for that 3 minutes. While it's sitting, in a small bowl, add 1 tablespoon of brown swerve or brown sugar sweetener of your choice and a half tablespoon of ground cinnamon. Use a fork or a whisk and whisk it all together until it's fully combined. Now again, if you don't like the brown sugar taste, you can substitute the brown swerve for monk fruit sweetener or another granulated sweetener of your choice and mix that in with the cinnamon. This is going to be for the topping of your cookies. So make sure you mix it really well. Make sure there's no big lumps, especially if you're using the brown swerve. The brown swerve likes to clump up, so you might need to get your fingers in there and rub it together just to make sure that there's no big lumps. You want to make sure that the brown swerve and the cinnamon are getting fully combined and there's no big lumps of the brown swerve being stuck together. So really make sure you get in there with your fork or your whisk or your fingers and get it all mixed together good. Once it's mixed together good, set it aside. And after your dough is set for 3 minutes, give it a little bit of a stir just to make sure that everything is sticking together as it should. Then scoop the dough out 1 tablespoon at a time onto the prepared baking sheet. Once the dough has been scooped out, shape each scoop into a tight ball. Then use your hand and gently flatten the tops of the cookies. You do not want these completely flat. You just want them barely flat. That way they come out actually looking like a cookie. If you don't slightly flatten the top, then your cookie looks more like a ball when it comes out rather than an actual cookie shape. It doesn't affect the flavor, but it does affect the look. So if you're wanting it to look more like an actual cookie, then you do need to flatten the tops with your hands just a little bit. Because remember, I've talked about before, these are gluten-free cookies. Basically whatever shape that they are on your baking sheet, that's pretty much the shape that they're going to come out of the oven looking like. So if you put it in the oven and it looks like a ball, it's pretty much, for the most part, going to come out looking like a ball. So if you want it to have that more traditional cookie shape, just flatten the tops just a little bit, not a lot. You don't want it to look like a pancake either. So just a little bit of a flattening on the top. Once you've flattened the tops just a little bit, then take your brown swerve and cinnamon mixture and lightly sprinkle it over the tops of each one of the cookies. If you don't want to use all of the brown swerve and cinnamon topping, you don't have to. You can always put it in a small airtight container and use it as a topping on cupcakes or other cookies, or when you make these again. It's up to you how much of the cinnamon topping that you want on there. So sprinkle as little or as much as you want. Once you've got the topping on all the cookies, pop it in your oven and bake it for 8 to 10 minutes, or just until the edges start to become golden. Now these cookies will be soft when they come out of the oven at first. So do not keep them in for longer than 10 minutes at all because they will start to burn. So just because they come out and they seem soft, it doesn't mean they're not done. They will firm up as they cool. So as soon as you start seeing them getting golden around the edges, take them out of the oven and let them cool on the pan for 10 minutes. As they're cooling, they'll firm up to be the right texture of a cookie. So don't worry about them not firming up because they will. So do not try to cook them until they are firm. You will end up burning your cookies. Let them cool 10 minutes on the pan so they can firm up. Once they've cooled for 10 minutes and they're nice and firm, transfer them to a wire rack and let them cool completely. Store any leftovers in an airtight container at room temperature. They'll keep for about up to a week at room temperature. Of course, mine don't ever last that long. We eat them in a couple days, but they technically will keep up to a week on your countertop in an airtight container. If you don't think you're going to eat them within a week, then you can freeze them. Just put them in some Ziploc freezer bags and then pop them out, defrost them when you're ready to eat them. And there you have it. Gluten-free keto snickerdoodles. Eat and enjoy. And that's our recipe of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like and the subscribe button. Leave me a comment if you want to. Let me know if there's any recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do what I can to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.